Good evening, everyone. It is a truly honor for me to be here with you today. I want to begin by expressing my deep admiration for your dedication to education and your commitment to shaping the future of your students. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this space of learning and collaboration with you. I hope today's session is both inspiring and useful for your work in the classroom. I'm going to start sharing the presentation of the first module, which title is Critical Thinking. I'm pretty sure you have heard about this topic before. Maybe for some of you, it's kind of new, but anyway, we are going to learn together today. Let me just share the screen in order to start with this presentation. As I have told you, we will cover both critical thinking and storytelling. First of all, we will see the meaning of critical thinking, okay? It is important to keep in mind that this unit has been designed to introduce and explore both of the topics I have mentioned as modern EFL teaching strategies to train our students in a better way and to give them the necessary tools to succeed in their lives. Both approaches support the development of communicative competence. They also give us the opportunity to promote learning, autonomy, and cultivate higher order thinking skills in English language learners. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to ask yourselves this question. Have you ever wondered whether you are good critical thinkers? Do you usually provide reasons when someone asks you a question? Or you just limit your answer? Do you usually generate strong arguments supporting your answer with information you have read or information you have acquired previously? Let's look at this image. We have here some main characteristics of good thinkers. The first one is systematic, inquisitive, judicious, truth-seeking, confident in reasoning, open-minded, and analytical, above all, okay? If you have some of these characteristics, maybe you can be considered as a good critic. And this is what we, as teachers, need to achieve from our students. We need them to go beyond always. Don't just answer the questions we usually request them to answer, but encouraging them to support their answers, to have arguments. Having said so, we are going to read the definition of critical thinking. In EFL teaching, it refers to the ability that learners have to interpret, analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information in English beyond simple memorization. We, through critical thinking, are encouraging our students to develop reasoning and problem-solving skills, which are fundamental to go beyond what they are learning, leaving just simple memorization apart to develop reasoning and problem-solving skills. It encourages also students to form judgments, question assumptions, and supporting their answers and ideas with evidence, with information they have researched or information they have learned in previous classes. We have here some of the main characteristics that a good critical thinker usually has. The first one is interpret. What does it mean? When we interpret something, it's because we are understanding. We are able to explain the information using our own words. We usually become very analytical. Why? Because we break down complex information into smaller parts. We are able to separate the information we are receiving and breaking it down in order to analyze it by blocks. Evaluate, judging the credibility and value of information. You know that nowadays there is a lot of misinformation, and students have to recognize what is real from what is fake news. So we as teachers have to give them the necessary tools to be able to distinguish true and false information. Synthesize, combining ideas to form new conclusions or insights. Okay? In order to do this, it's very important that we encourage our students to read a lot of information and to distinguish what's real with some tips you can give them, okay? And especially, you know that nowadays students, when doing tasks, they are using a lot of the artificial intelligence, but they should be encouraged. It's not, you shouldn't punish students because they use the artificial intelligence. Instead of doing that, you have to teach them how to do it in a good way, how to look for additional information in some databases. For example, Google Scholar, ERIC, and they should contrast the information they are receiving from the artificial intelligence with what they have read or what they are going to read in order to confirm if that information is real. The other one is critical thinking. It develops reasoning skills. Students become more thinkers, and they go beyond in a deep way. They start to question themselves. Is it true? Let's find any other additional information to verify this. Okay, and we have to stop them memorizing things. They shouldn't learn things by heart. They should be prepared with these kind of skills to face or to try to solve any daily problem they might have. The structure of arguments in critical thinking. We have three elements that form part of these arguments. The first one is assumptions, when you assume something is in that way. This refers specifically to unstated beliefs that connect reasons to conclusions. And talking about reasons, you have to teach your students to show you evidence, support what they are saying. In conclusion is the main claim of the statement being argued. Okay, here we have added some other information related to these three elements. And let's read the first one. It says, the unstated beliefs or taking for granted ideas that connect the reasons to the conclusion, filling logical gaps. For example, assuming that improved academic performance is desirable. You're assuming something, but you don't still have the evidence. Reasons. The reasons gives you the evidence, the support, the premises that are offered to convince the audience of the conclusion's truth. For example, research shows that critical thinking improves academic performance. It's because the students have read the information, have gone beyond what you just provide them with, but they have done their own research to have this evidence. And in the conclusion says the primary statement that the arguer wants others to accept. It's the main point of claim or claim of the argument. Example, students should engage in critical thinking activities. That's the main conclusion, okay? Here we have another chart in which we have the component, the definition, and the example for an argument. The component is conclusion, right? So what's the definition? It is the claim, as I have already said. It is the main claim or position the argument is trying to prove. For example, public smoking should be banned. This is the conclusion. After students read about public smoking context, they are going to be able to deduce this conclusion. But they have to have reasons as well. These are the statements that provide evidence or justification for the conclusion. For example, secondhand smoke harms non-smokers. It means that people who are behind or next to other people that usually smoke are going to be harmed in their health, right? So smoking-related illnesses increase public healthcare costs. That's another example of reasons. And in the assumptions we have, those are unstated beliefs, something you suppose, or those are principles that logically connect the reasons to the conclusion. For example, governments have a responsibility to prevent harm to citizens, meaning that it is the government's job to keep people safe. The other example is public health benefits outweigh individual freedoms in this case, meaning that in this situation, protecting everyone's health is more important than personalized or personal choice. Here we have some steps that we have to follow when being good critical thinkers. Interpretation refers to the uncovering explicit and implicit meanings in a text through close reading. For example, when you give your students a piece of text to read or any script or context, they should be able to ask this question: what does this text say? They should be able to get the gist, to get the main idea of the text and ask themselves, what does this text say? What does it want to convey? In the case of the other step, that is analysis, it refers to the breaking down how language, structure, and devices create meaning. And students should be able to ask themselves, how does this text work? Okay. They should join ideas together in each paragraph and relate the information they are reading. Evaluation. So, evaluation. Judging the effectiveness, strengths, and weaknesses using clear criteria. For example, they should ask this question: is this successful? Why? They are emitting a judgment. And in the synthesis step, This refers to the combining ideas to form new perspectives or arguments. The question will be, what bigger picture emerges? So they relate all the information they have read in order to synthesize it. Here you are going to see some strategies in which the importance of intentional pedagogy in bridging authentic materials with critical engagement are going to be covered. And it is important when you assign your students writing maybe or reading tasks to ask them questions, but in order to enhance them, to analyze what they have done. For example, if you present them with a story, you should be able to ask them, how would the story change if told by a group that often left out? Okay, maybe, I don't know if you have heard about solo taxonomy. This is a kind of similar to Bloom's taxonomy, but it differs because it presents students with questions that go from unistructural level, then to multistructural one, to relational, and to extended abstract. So the questions go from simple to complex. So those are the kind of questions you should include when asking your students to read something. So you kind of force them to think, to give you reasons, and go deeper in the reading. Here we have some strategies. The first one is explicit instruction. The main characteristics are that direct teaching of critical thinking skills and dispositions, clear explanations and modeling, guided practice and feedback. Remember that when you give feedback to your students, you are telling them how good they are doing something or what else they need to do in order to achieve the main objective of the activity. The benefits are that it enhances students' ability to analyze, to infer, to evaluate. And some key considerations you as teacher have to keep in mind is that it requires you to be well prepared. It is best combined with content learning. The other strategy is teacher questioning. Use of open, referential, and higher order questions. Go from simple questions to complex ones. Encourage your students to reflect on what they have read. You can also use some Socratic techniques. What is this? You need to ask them questions that really help them to understand what they have read. Not just simple questions, not just questions that they can clearly find the answer in the text itself, but go beyond always. The benefits are that it promotes deeper understanding and engagement. Students are not going to be passive anymore. They are going to be active learners. They are going to ask you if something is misunderstood, so they are going to require your guide always. So you have to encourage them not to be just in their comfort zone, but go beyond always and give all the best they can. It fosters active student participation. The key considerations you have to have is that it needs balance between question types. Okay, remember that all these question types you can do your students. Wait time and interaction are essential. Okay, when you ask your students any question, you should give them the necessary time for them to think about the answer they are going to give you. You don't need to pressure them to give you an immediate answer, but they need to take their time. Active and cooperative learning. The main characteristics are that strategies like discussion, debates, peer questioning, student-centered and interactive. All the time, the focus is on a student. It's not just teacher talking time, but student talking time. Remember that they are the ones who need to learn. And the benefits are that it develops collaborative and evaluative skills, enhances motivation and ownership of learning. And the key considerations are that it requires a structure and clear goals. Remember that every time you teach a lesson to your students, they have to have clear what are the main objectives you want to achieve. And then you have to set the rules very well and give the instructions in a very clear way before you put your students to do any activity. Here we have some main characteristics of critical thinking in education. Okay, the first one is analysis. We have talked a little bit about it. The other one is evaluation, inference, explanation, and self-regulation. Here we have the description for each one of them and how to apply them in the teaching learning process. Let's read the first one. Analysis is the breaking information into parts. Okay, try to understand what they are reading part by part. Examine main ideas in each of the paragraphs. What does the author who has written it wants to convey? What's the message? What does he want to transmit? And the implications or applications are that asking students to compare. You can ask them to compare, to categorize, to identify patterns in text, problems, or historical events. I know some of you maybe are not just teaching English, but maybe you are teaching any subject, social science, maybe literature, or any other subject in English. So you should take advantage of this opportunity you have to give them the necessary material to improve their reading skills as well. In the evaluation, we have that judging the credibility, logic, and quality of information or arguments. Is this real information? Did it convince you as a reader? Should I go beyond and research a little bit more about this information just for me to be like kind of reliable information? Okay, is this reliable? And I'm convinced with what I have read. And the application is peer review activities. You can join students to work together to analyze pieces of information and determining whether an answer is supported by evidence. If you ask them to read a text and then you require them to answer some questions, as always, to include supporting details, okay, reasons. The other characteristic is inference, drawing reasonable conclusions based on evidence and prior knowledge. The application is predicting outcomes, solving problems, using clues, or interpreting data from graphs and experiments. If you include this kind of readings, maybe you can present them with some case studies and ask them to find a solution for the problem you are presenting them. And ask them, why are you proposing this solution? What are the reasons or the evidence you have that show you that this is going to solve the problem. Okay? Explanation. Communicating, reasoning clearly and logically to justify decisions or conclusions. And the application is that you can do some oral presentations, writing tasks where students show the reasoning, and group discussion. When asking a student, after a reading task, you can immediately require them to do a writing task. Okay, after you have read this information now, what was maybe the moral of the story? What was the dilemma? What was the problem you found there? And how are you going to solve this? Write a short paragraph to give me the solution to the problem presented in the reading. And self-regulation, reflecting on one's thinking, identifying biases, and correcting errors in reasoning. And the application will be using rubrics, metacognitive journals, or asking students to evaluate their own work and strategies. We have been using rubrics in order for students to know what are the expectations of the tasks they are doing. So it is important that you socialize with them the rubric, and once they are sure about what you are requiring from them, they start working on the tasks you have assigned them. Okay, now let's talk about the importance of critical thinking for EFL learners. In today's rapidly evolving world, critical thinking has become an essential skill that enables individuals specifically to analyze information in a very effective way, solve complex problems, make informed decisions. Why it matters for EFL learners? Critical thinking skills are very valuable as they navigate English language learning and cultural context. Every time you require your students to read something, they are going to be in contact with other people's culture as well. So you have to take advantage of this opportunity to encourage them to go a little bit beyond. And having the opportunity to know about other cultures is going to enrich their learning. And they are going to feel kind of engaged, motivated to participate. And it's not just you as the main center in the classroom transmitting information, but it's a matter of giving them opportunities to share ideas, to share opinions, to ask questions to each other, and to learn in a collaborative way. The key benefits for learners: enhance language abilities, of course, develops deeper understanding of language structures and nuances. You know that when students read a lot, they are going to acquire also new vocabulary. They are going to improve their writing skills because they are reviewing how structures are used in reading material. Improve comprehension enables deeper understanding of authentic material. Bring any authentic material to your class. Bring interesting material. Material students enjoy working with. Don't make your class boring class. We don't have boring classes. Remember that most of the students don't like to come to English classes, but it's because we as teachers are not doing enough, maybe. We should create a nice environment in our classroom so it welcomes our student. It is an enjoyable place to learn. That's the environment students should have. Improve comprehension enables deeper understanding of authentic materials Effective communication enhances ability to express ideas clearly and evaluate others' viewpoints. Sometimes our students are kind of shy to express their ideas, or they feel ashamed maybe, but you should teach them that making errors, it's normal when they are learning a new language. These errors are indicators of how they are progressing at acquiring the language. So they shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. It doesn't matter if they make mistakes. They are going to improve with the time. Lifelong learning skills. This critical thinking and storytelling skill storytelling, through storytelling, the students are going to acquire critical thinking and problem solving skills. And these are lifelong learning skills that they will keep in their minds forever. So you have to equip them with the necessary tools for continued growth beyond the classroom. Here I have included two graphics. Okay, as you can see, first of all, define critical thinking. Establish a clear understanding of what critical thinking entails. Once you and your students notice the importance of this critical thinking in every activity they do, they are going to notice how important it is to develop these skills. Teach specific skills. Introduce and explain essential critical thinking skills. You as a teacher have to do this. Model application. Demonstrate how to apply these skills in real-world scenarios. Bring them with some real information they can analyze, they can discuss, maybe in pairs, in groups, to break out the readings in little parts and analyzing them to come out with conclusions. Provide guided practice. Offer structured opportunities for students to practice with feedback. As I have told you, when you give them feedback, you need to encourage them. If it is a written task, you need to encourage them to review it. It's not just to receive it and to put it into the backpack. You need to encourage them to review what were their mistakes in order for to consider those suggestions to improve in future tasks. Use graphic organizers. Employ visual tools to help your students organize and analyze information. When you talk to them in English, because that's the language they need to acquire, you are training them to use the target language, okay? Try not to use Spanish when you teach your English lesson, because Spanish is outside everywhere. English, it's just in the English classroom. You should keep that in mind. Clarifying questions. Asking questions to ensure understanding of concepts. Proving questions. Encouraging students to provide evidence and explore implications. Hypothetical questions. Posing. What if scenarios to stimulate creative thinking? Evaluative questions. Assessing the strengths and weaknesses of arguments. Okay, why are you telling me that? What are the reasons you have to show me this is true? You should question your students in that way. Do you have any evidence? Synthesis questions. Combining ideas to draw conclusions. Okay? If you ask your students these kind of questions, they are going to improve. They are going to be better critical thinkers. They are going to provide you with the possible solutions, and everything is going to change in the classroom They are not going to be passive anymore, but active learners. And that's what we want to achieve. Here we have some active learning strategies, okay? And the first one is think, pair, share. For doing or for applying this strategy, you need to pair your students, to ask them to work in pairs. And together, they can analyze a text, they can share ideas. How did you understand this? I understood this in this way. So they can come to an idea, come together to understand it together, okay? And then they are going to be asked to share what they have understood from that piece of reading with the rest of their classmates. You can also use group projects. Students collaborate on research and presentations. Okay, when you ask or require your students to work in groups, you should be sure to assign each one of them in the groups a role. For example, the advisable number you should use to group up your students is 4 maybe, or 5 students, no more. So the first one, student number 1 is going to be the observer or the researcher, the other one, the lecturer, the other one, the writer, and the other one, it's going to be the timekeeper, okay? So each one of them is going to have a role. So nobody is going to just to relax and I'm going to wait for the strong students to do everything, okay? And you should monitor constantly the groups to see if everybody's working. You can also propose some debates. Students argue different perspectives on controversial topics. You can come up with a topic that maybe is in fashion and students know a little bit and start the debate. Case studies, as I was mentioning before, students analyze real-world scenarios and propose solutions. Role-playing, this is very useful, especially with shy students, because they are assuming another character role, so they are usually encouraged to produce. GISO activities, these are reading activities students can do in groups. Everyone obtains a piece of the reading, and then one group shares with the other what they have read, and so on, among all the groups. Here I have information related to critical thinking again. And this is a very common phrase. I don't know if you have heard this. No pain, no gain. Okay? It means that things don't come easy. We need to effort a lot. We need to change that chip we have. We need not to be relaxed anymore, but we need to go beyond. If we want to be good thinkers, this is what we should keep in mind. Let's see. If you don't know, make the necessary effort and practice to succeed, you hardly will obtain this skill. If you don't keep on practicing, on rehearsing with your students, on encouraging them to give more, so they are not going to succeed. Constant practice will help you to attain it by encouraging, giving them the necessary tools and materials. They are going to improve. Critical thinking will provide you with the necessary tools. The best thinkers were not the ones that gave outstanding performances in their lives, but the ones who have struggled a lot to improve. Okay? Don't ever allow that your students give up. Don't ever allow them to say, I can't. Encourage them and tell them that they are able to do whatever they want, if they really want. Good thinkers are the ones who ask constant questions to clarify their ideas, who pursue important thoughts and get the gist of the conversation, who figure out things, associate, and connect ideas. They are people who believe in their own minds. Okay? Those are the ones who every single time are asking you questions. And sometimes we as teachers don't like our students to ask too much questions, right? Maybe it's because we don't have the right answer. But in that case, if you don't have the answer to the question your student is asking for, you should be frank and you should tell them, okay, Peter, I don't have the answer to your question now, but don't worry. I'm going to research and tomorrow I will let you know the answer, okay? That is perfectly acceptable because we don't know everything, okay? We are human beings and we don't have all the answers to those questions. So you have to research and let them know at the next day what the answer is. All this can be achieved through constant trial and error. As I told you, it is perfectly acceptable that our students commit a lot of mistakes, but trying once and once again, they are going to succeed. You need to enhance them, to encourage them to always try to do their best. Don't let them give up, okay? Give them kind words, give them encouraging words that allow them to succeed. I have had many students who wanted to give up. And I have talked to them and I have told them, you need to demonstrate that you are capable of doing. Just continue. Review the information before coming to the class. Investigate, research a lot. Don't give up. It is very easy to say, I cannot. But if you don't try, how are you going to know if you were able to do it? Okay, and I want to finish this presentation about critical thinking, just about critical thinking, because we are going to continue with storytelling, okay? By presenting you this video. Please let me know if you can hear it, okay?
In today's world, learning English.
Can you hear it? Thumbs up? Okay, thank you very much for letting me know.
English is about more than memorizing vocabulary and grammar. It's about becoming a confident communicator who can navigate a flood of information and diverse ideas. Critical thinking is essential, not just for academic success, but for life. For EFL learners, it transforms language learning into a tool for understanding and engaging with the world. In the digital age, we're surrounded by news, social media, and opinions, often in a second language. Without critical thinking, it's easy to accept misinformation or weak arguments. By teaching students to analyze and question what they read and hear, we equip them to form their own well-reasoned opinions in English. This essay will explore practical strategies for making critical thinking central to the EFL journey. Critical thinking is simply the process of actively questioning and evaluating information, rather than accepting it at face value. It's about asking, is this true? Who is telling me this and why? Critical thinking isn't about being negative. It's about building stronger beliefs and making better decisions. Think of it as inspecting the quality of ideas, just as you'd check materials before building a house. In the EFL classroom, it means going beyond definitions to ask how words are used and what they imply. When reading, critical thinkers analyze characters' motivations and question the author's message. This active engagement makes language learning more meaningful and personal. Anyone can learn to think critically. It's a skill that grows with practice. It's about moving from what does this say to what does this mean and why does it matter? By fostering this skill, we help students become thoughtful, independent thinkers in every aspect of life. To think critically, you must understand how arguments are built. In critical thinking, an argument is a logical structure for presenting a point of view, not a fight. Every argument has three key parts: the conclusion, main point, reasons, supporting evidence, and assumptions, unstated beliefs. For example, Schools should provide every student with a tablet is a conclusion. Reasons might include tablets give access to digital resources, or they prepare students for a tech-driven world. Assumptions are the hidden links. Like believing more resources always mean better learning. Strong critical thinkers identify conclusions, examine reasons, and question assumptions. This skill helps you spot weak arguments and avoid being misled. By breaking down arguments, students learn to evaluate claims in English and beyond. Mastering this structure is the first step to analyzing any information critically. Let's break critical thinking into 4 clear steps: interpretation, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. First, interpretation. What is the text actually saying? Identify the main point and supporting reasons. Second, analysis. How is the argument built? Examine the evidence and spot hidden assumptions. Third, evaluation. How strong is the argument? Judge the credibility of sources and the logic of the reasoning. Ask, is the evidence reliable? Are there logical flaws? Fourth, synthesis. What can I conclude, and how does this connect to what I already know? Compare different viewpoints and form your own perspective. This process moves students from basic understanding to independent, well-supported opinions. Practicing these steps makes critical thinking concrete and manageable. With this framework, students can tackle any information with confidence. Let's see critical thinking in action with a debate. Should schools replace textbooks with tablets? Start with interpretation. Students read 2 short articles, one for, one against tablets, and identify each author's main point and reasons. Next, analysis. Students examine the evidence and spot assumptions, like whether all students have internet access or if teachers are trained for new tech. Then, evaluation. Which argument is stronger? Is the evidence credible? Are there biases or emotional appeals? Students learn to weigh evidence and decide which reasons are most persuasive. Finally, synthesis. Students form their own viewpoint, using evidence from the articles and their own experiences. They might suggest a balanced approach, using both tablets and books, or introducing tablets after teacher training. The process ends with a debate or presentation, where students defend their positions in English. This activity builds language skills and independent thinking. Students move from repeating information to creating their own arguments. It's a powerful way to make critical thinking real and relevant. Teaching critical thinking works best when it's direct and explicit. Many EFL students benefit from clear instruction on concepts like conclusion, reason, and assumption. Start by defining these terms and giving simple examples. Introduce cognitive biases like confirmation bias to help students recognize flawed thinking. Model the thinking process aloud. Show how to find the main point, reasons, and assumptions in a text. After modeling, give students guided practice with new texts and structured questions. Let students work in pairs or groups to identify arguments and assumptions. Gradually reduce support as students gain confidence. This approach turns critical thinking from an abstract idea into a practical, repeatable skill. Direct instruction ensures all students can develop these essential abilities. The most powerful tool for fostering critical thinking is asking good questions. Move beyond simple recall. Ask open-ended questions that require analysis, evaluation, and creativity. Use Bloom's taxonomy to design questions that prompt deeper thinking, like, what's the difference between these perspectives? Or, which solution is more ethical and why? Socratic questioning helps students clarify their ideas and uncover assumptions by probing deeper with each response. Create a classroom culture where questioning is valued and students feel safe to explore ideas. Give students time to think before answering, and encourage them to elaborate on their responses. Respond with curiosity. That's interesting. Can you explain why you think that? By modeling inquiry, teachers make deep, critical questions the norm. Critical thinking thrives in social settings where ideas are shared and challenged. Group discussions, debates, and peer questioning are powerful tools in the EFL classroom. Structure discussions with clear tasks and thought-provoking questions to keep them focused and analytical. Debates require research, logical structure, and anticipation of counter-arguments, skills at the heart of critical thinking. Use nuanced debate topics to encourage exploration of solutions, not just sides. Reciprocal peer questioning lets students create and ask higher-level questions, deepening their understanding. This metacognitive process, thinking about thinking, helps students become more aware of their own reasoning. Collaborative activities make critical thinking active, engaging, and memorable. To make critical thinking relevant, bring real-world materials. news articles, podcasts, videos, into the classroom. Authentic texts expose students to cultural nuances, persuasive language, and varied perspectives. Compare articles on the same event from different sources to spot bias and analyze word choice. Use guiding questions. What emotions does the headline evoke? Whose voices are included or missing? Teach students to evaluate online information with tools like the CRAP test. Currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose. Practice critical listening with podcasts and videos. Evaluate storytelling, data, and emotional appeals. Discuss. Was the speaker's story effective? Was the data clear and unbiased? Engaging with real media prepares students for the persuasive techniques they'll encounter every day. Integrating critical thinking into EFL isn't optional. It's essential for preparing students for the real world. It shifts language learning from memorization to empowering students as confident, discerning thinkers. By breaking critical thinking into clear steps and using practical strategies, we make it accessible to all. Students learn to question, reason, and argue effectively in English. These skills prepare them for higher education, the workplace, and global citizenship. Critical thinking also deepens language proficiency. Students gain vocabulary, grammar, and fluency by grappling with complex ideas. Language learning becomes meaningful and motivating when students see its real-world power. Our role is to equip students with tools for lifelong success in a world full of information and misinformation. By making critical thinking central, we give students the skills to understand, question, and shape the world. In today's world.
Okay, now I'd like to know if you have any question. Questions so far? Okay. I don't know if everything was clear. Okay. So no questions? May I continue with the other topic then? Okay. If there are no questions, I hope all the information was clear enough, and that if you haven't had the chance to incorporate critical thinking skills or to try to help your students to develop these skills, you start doing, okay? You are going to see all the benefits you are going to attain if you just dare to do it. Okay, now I'm going to continue with the other topic. This time I'm going to move on to talk about storytelling, okay? And why is it important for our students to incorporate stories? They really love to be taught through stories. What is storytelling then? This is an educational approach that uses narrative structures to engage learners emotionally and cognitively, while we also help them to develop their own language skills through authentic context. It is going to help us to transform abstract language concepts into meaningful and memorable experiences. You can use stories for children, for teenagers, for adults, for anyone. Stories help us to convey information. They catch the attention of our students by giving them some morals sometimes, some moral dilemmas, okay? And why is it powerful? Because stories activate multiple areas of the brain. I don't know if you remember those famous fairy tales our parents used to tell us, or maybe our grandparents. And I guess this tradition fortunately has not been lost yet. When we have our children, we continue telling them about those stories we have learned when we were children. Okay, and sometimes we also invent stories, and this is a way to entertain them. So this is something we are going to store in our brains forever. Those stories are going to be part of our long-term memories. And you can use them with your students. This is going to awake some emotional connection because those stories are going to create emotional bonds with content, increasing in this way motivation and also the participation of your students. Authentic language use exposes learners to natural language patterns, cultural context, of course, and meaningful communication. And they are going to enrich their vocabulary because they are going to find new words that it's going to enrich the way they express their ideas. Social interaction facilitates collaborative learning and peer interaction in safe, engaging environments. You're going to create nice environments for your students to enjoy the learning of the target language. Because we know that most of them don't like English, but if you make your class interesting, if you bring those kind of materials that are going to catch their attention, you are going to see that they are going to start loving English. And there are ways to connect critical thinking and storytelling. And how we are going to attain this. Enhance discourse analysis. Storytelling encourages learners to analyze narrative structures and evaluate characters, decisions, and motives. As you know, when you find a story, it is always going to include some characters, okay? And each of the characters is going to show some emotions. And it's going, the whole story is going to present a dilemma or a problem. And also it's going to give students some moral. Deeper reflection. Narrative context prompt learners to question assumptions and consider alternative perspectives and solutions. You know that sometimes the ends of the stories are not as the ones we prefer to have. And maybe you can take advantage of that opportunity you have and ask your student maybe to change the end of the story. How would they like the end to be? Okay? And they can have the opportunity to write the ends of the story, maybe the beginning of the story. It's just up to you how creative you are. Cultural awareness. Stories provide safe context to explore cultural and social issues, fostering intercultural understanding. You know that through different kind of stories, we can put our students into, we can help them to learn about other cultures, okay? To learn about other people's customs and traditional ways of behaving when they have their holidays, for example. Synergistic effects. Supports development of communicative competence. When you ask your students to retell the story, So they are putting into practice their communicative skills, and they are transmitting what they have understood from the story. So it promotes learner autonomy, and also these kind of stories are very engaging for your students to learn. And you can create a story considering every single topic you are going to teach them. You can, as the warm-up activity, introduce a story with the topic you are going to teach them. And you are going to see that they are going to feel engaged and hooked into the lesson you are going to teach them. What are the benefits of storytelling in EFL classrooms? Storytelling offers numerous advantages beyond language acquisition. It fosters a holistic learning environment that enhances both linguistic and cognitive development. Enhance engagement. Through storytelling, you can increase your students' participation. You can keep them hooked to what you are telling them. It transforms passive recipients into active participants through interactive narratives. It can help you to improve their comprehension. Learners can be able to understand complex concepts by presenting information in a structured, sequential manner that aligns with how the human mind processes information. Cultural awareness. Stories from diverse cultures provide students with authentic language input. Input is everything you receive, okay? In order to be able to develop all 4 language skills in the target language. And it also fosters cross-cultural understanding and appreciation of different perspectives and traditions. And it promotes higher order thinking skills. Storytelling encourages to analyze, to evaluate, to synthesize through activities like predicting outcomes, identifying themes, and drawing conclusions from narratives. If you just give students the title of the story, you can ask them to imagine what is going to happen in that story. How do they think the end is going to be? How it's going to be the beginning? What might be the problem according to the title? So you can use lots of activities just by introducing the title of a story. Practical strategies for implementing storytelling. There are some effective approaches to integrate storytelling into EFL teaching to enhance engagement in language skill development. For example, you can use with little children, with kids, you can use those common fairy tales. You can ask the student to role play a scene in the story, maybe. You can use also digital storytelling through multimedia storytelling projects. You can use collaborative storytelling. How come? You start with the beginning of the story, and then you ask each of the students to add another part for the story, and together you can create a new story. Implementation benefits, enhance engagement, increases students' participation. It helps to improve the output. The output is everything the student can produce, such as oral and written skills. And the cognitive benefits promotes deeper thinking. Again, if you ask the students, what was the dilemma or what was the moral of the story, you are promoting deeper thinking and critical thinking, okay? Because they are going to interpret it, okay? And digital storytelling in modern EFL training. What is digital storytelling? This is This combines traditional narrative techniques with digital tools to create multimedia rich stories. It transforms static text into dynamic interactive experiences. You can find then pictures with movements, so it's going to be more attractive for your students to watch them, to watch how the characters move and so on. What are the benefits for language learning? Through storytelling, you can enhance oral production by asking your students to retell you the story using their own words, to summarize it. Improve written coherence in digital narratives. They are going to familiarize with the structure of the grammar use, with new vocabulary. They are going to obtain deeper cognitive engagement through creative expressions. And most of the story includes some slang phrases, some how people use language daily in the real life. Increase peer collaboration and feedback also. You can put together your students to read a story and they can collaborate with each other, understanding the story as a whole group, okay? Maybe if there is any misconception, any student in the group can clarify ideas to help them and better understand what's the gist of the story. Multimedia tools, audio recording apps, you can use video creation software. You can, if your students are teenagers, maybe you know that they are very technological, so they can help you creating some videos using Podtoon, for example. This is a tool that allows them to create their own stories, their own videos, so you can take advantage of the knowledge students have regarding technology. Digital platforms, learning management systems, online collaboration tools, virtual storytelling spaces. Okay, and there are ways to assess students through multi-dimensional rubrics. Again, you present all the time you want your students to do a task. It is better to create a rubric so they can analyze it before and knowing what are the expectations of the task. And once they have it clear, they can start doing the activity. Storytelling across different proficiency levels. You can adapt also the storytelling techniques to meet the needs of the learners. Remember that you always have to think about what your students need, what are their main interests, okay? And based on that, you should prepare the material they might need, and considering also the different learning styles. And you have to try not to leave any student behind, but all of them should learn at the same rhythm. With beginners, you can use simplified stories, short stories, simple narratives with familiar vocabulary and repetitive structure so they can understand how the story goes. Visual support, provide picture cues and visual scaffolds to aid comprehension. Okay, visual scaffolds means step by step, including flashcards, for example, to help them understand how the story goes. Control practice, focus on memorization and recitation of simple story sequences. You can use this with little ones, with kids, with children. And they, of course, are going to find new vocabulary that you should pre-teach them in advance. So once they see the new words in the story, they are going to know what they mean. And remember that translation is the last option you as English teachers have to use. You can use gestures, you can use pictures, drawings, mimics, body language, okay? In order to help them understand what those words mean, or realia, real objects. With intermediate students, scaffolding, step by step, provides structured support that gradually decreases as learners gain confidence. Guided creation, help learners create stories with prompts and sentence frames. You can ask your students to create a story based on some grammar structures they are learning. Collaborative storytelling. Engage in group storytelling activities that build on each other's contribution. As I was telling you, you start with the first line, then each student in the group continues adding a piece of information in order to create a whole story. In the case of advanced students, you can use complex narratives, exploring nonlinear storytelling, multiple perspective narratives, critical analysis, as they manage the language a little bit more. They can analyze authorial techniques and cultural context of the stories. You can ask them to create reconstruction, maybe encourage transformation of original stories and creative writing. Okay, now you're going to transform this story, and you are going to add your own characters, your own beginning, your own supporting details, and the final or the end of the story. In the cross-cultural stories, explore stories from diverse cultures and perspectives. So advanced students, you know, the level increases according to your students' English level, okay? Interactive storytelling activities. You can use story circles. For example, students sit in a circle and take turns adding sentences to a collective story, promoting turn-taking and creativity. I'm sure most of you have done this. Role-play storytelling. Students assume character roles and develop narratives through dramatic expression and dialogue. Okay, they can create, based on the story, they can create a dialogue from it. Collaborative story building. Groups create a story together using fragmented pieces, encouraging negotiation and creative input. Critical story analysis. Students analyze and discuss elements in the story, promoting analytical thinking and vocabulary development. And these are some of the benefits you can obtain by incorporating storytelling into your classes. For example, you are encouraging through them to active participation in your students. Provides meaningful language practice when they retell the stories and when they say you the moral, what the moral of the story was. Develops creativity and imagination. Of course, you know that in this kind of stories, we find lots of imaginative characters, imaginative phrases, building classroom community, promotes critical reflection, reinforces cultural understanding as well. Okay, here I have an activity I propose you to do. It says, close your eyes and imagine this. You are walking through a sunlit forest when something glints beneath your feet or shines. You bend down, brush away the dirt, and wait. Is that a mysterious silver coin? This is how our adventure begins today. Look at this activity. Just by introducing a little bit of the story or a little thing that might happen in real life situation, you are giving them the beginning of a story and you are asking them to imagine what comes next. You can do this with any topic you are going to teach your students, but remember, you always have to relate the topic you are teaching your students with the story you are going to present them with, okay? Here I have a chart in which I have included some strategies, how it's used in the story, and what is the example. First of all, in a story, we always should have a hook. Hook is something that engages our students. Starts with a question to spark curiosity, as the question I just presented you. Have you ever found something strange? Narrative structure, clear beginning, middle, and the end. The beginning can be finds coin, middle, there was a star with loss, rainy, and the end would be it was a treasure. Okay? Just by giving them those words, they can build up the story, the whole story. Relatable. Features kids on an adventure, something readers might imagine doing. For example, Mia and Jake act like real friends. Excited, scared, brave. You have emotions there. Character and emotions. Characters have distinct personalities and emotions, of course. Mia is brave, but scared of storms. Jake jokes to hide fear. Visual aids. Descriptions create mental images. Rusty chests and their twisted roots. Student storytelling, open-ended questions, encourages readers to imagine their own version. Would you keep the treasure or tell the town? Story maps. Key elements are easy to identify. Setting, forest, the plot may be the coin, map, storm, treasure. Dialogue. Character voices make the story lively. When you tell your story, your students any story, you change your voice, right? In order to characterize each of the characters there. So your voice has to you need to raise your intonation. Sometimes you need to down it and so on. So you create that nice environment in your class and you catch the attention of your students. For example, Scarlet Cat. The treasures gotta be near the giant oak. Oak is a kind of tree. Tiny, short, big, but impactful. 5-minute read. Conflict is a storm, and the resolution is the treasure. Happen quickly. Reflect and connect. Questions link the story to real-life lessons. How is this like real-life explorers? Okay, the whole story is going to appear in the resources you have in the course. I hope you can read it. Okay, I found this information very interesting, and it is going to give you some ideas about how to integrate both critical thinking and storytelling into communicative language teaching. These are going to enrich language instruction by fostering deeper engagement, creativity, and powerful communication. Communicative language teaching, it's the one that gives students the opportunity to use the language in meaningful contexts. It encourages interaction, learner autonomy, and the development of all 4 language skills all together, according to Richard, 2005. Within this framework, storytelling serves as a powerful pedagogical tool. As I have told you, you can create any kind of story considering the lesson you are going to teach, just by introducing the students with a question. It promotes critical thinking. It allows your students to be more analytical, reflect about the language used. It enables them to ask questions, to express complex ideas in the target language, to use new vocabulary they have acquired through that story. By integrating these elements, educators can design tasks that not only improve communicative competence, but also develops learners' cognitive and creative capacities, aligning with the holistic goals of modern language education. So it is, all the tools are in your hands. Now you have to give them to your students and start including storytelling also into your lessons to make your classes even more attractive. Here we have the cycle of integrated learning. Develop communicative skills, cognitive skills, boost overall cognitive abilities, enhance language proficiency, improving communication skills, engaging learnings, captivating their attention with storytelling, foster critical thinking because it encourages analytical skills. They have to analyze what the moral of the story is, what would be the possible solution to that dilemma presented in the story, and so on. Here we have some CLT, that is communicative language teaching principle, storytelling strategy, and how to integrate it with critical thinking element. Let's see the first one. Meaningful communication. Predict endings, personal narratives, in critical thinking element, justify predictions, evaluate actions. Real world tasks. News retelling. Okay, you can ask your students to retell the story using their own words. So they are analyzing sources, comparing perspectives. Interaction through role play activities or story circles. Debates, outcomes, discuss moral dilemmas. Learner-centeredness, personal storytelling, creative writing. Students can reflect, question, and solve any problem presented in the story. They put into practice all 4 language skills. They are able to summarize, synthesize, and argue. Task-based learning, story podcasts, you can use them, and digital storytelling as well. Students can research their own stories. They can script, they can create their own stories based on what you have told them. So you have lots of benefits when using storytelling. Sorry. Okay, what are story circles? I guess I already shared with you in the previous slide, so I'm going to skip it now, okay? I'm going to continue with the next one. Yeah, here we have some kind of assessments we can use in order to evaluate our students through storytelling. For example, rubrics and checklists. Detailed criteria for language accuracy, storytelling techniques, and critical thinking elements. If you want your students to do something with a story, you also have to create a rubric to socialize it with them first. So they keep in mind what are your expectations. Peer assessment also can be applied for assessing them in pairs. Portfolio assessment, you can also create portfolios by collecting all your students' stories and to see how they are progressing at creating more. Okay, here you have the criteria you have to consider when using storytelling. For example, language accuracy, grammar, vocabulary fluency, critical thinking, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. In story structure, how is it organized? Does it have cohesion and coherence? Creative expressions, originality, and engagement, okay? You can consider these criteria to assess how well your students have created the stories. And there are some implementation tips that are use criteria that align with learning objectives, provide timely specific feedback. You are going to read constantly what your students are including in their stories, so you can give them the corresponding feedback and see how well they are doing or what they need to change. Here we have some addressing cultural diversity through stories. Okay. For cultural dimensions in storytelling, explores diverse cultural perspectives and worldviews. You can bring to the class stories not just from Ecuador, but from any other country, and students can get familiarized with the culture of those countries. Storytelling creates a safe space for cultural exploration. Through storytelling, you can allow learners to engage with different perspectives while you are helping them to develop all the 4 language skills. And this is going to foster in them empathy, global awareness, and effective cross-cultural communication. Okay, you are going to find always some challenges you have to overcome. And the first one is time constraints, okay? I'm sure you as English teachers don't have much time for doing lots of activities with your students. Or maybe you don't have the necessary resources, but you have to find ways, okay? Maybe you can incorporate 1 story through the unit or 2 according to the time you have been assigned to teach your English lessons. Sometimes, and I'm going to tell you that I had a student in the master's program who used to work in a town in which she didn't have access to any kind of material. But what she did was amazing, because she told me that although she didn't have the necessary resources, she had to travel or to walk half an hour in order to go to a cyber cafe in order to look for interesting activities that she used to bring back to her students. And that's the way she was finding ways to make her classes attractive for her students, and it really worked. So if you are kind of afraid to incorporate technology, to incorporate new material, I advise you to do it little by little, okay? And I'm sure your students are going to benefit a lot, and they are going to really enjoy your classes. And sometimes we have large group of students to teach, okay? In those cases, it's not advisable to ask them to form groups, because it's going to be very noisy. So maybe they should work in pairs. They should work in their own lines. You should find ways, okay, in order not to cause any alteration in the discipline. Time management. Integrate thinking and storytelling into existing activities. Use started and plenary tasks. Collaborative approaches. Students can work in pairs or maybe in groups if the class is not so large. Professional development, participate in ongoing training and join communities of practice, okay? It is advisable that you as teachers all the time improve the way you are teaching. And you can achieve this by joining through different seminars, conferences, maybe to attend some virtual sessions that might help you with some ideas to improve. You are always going to need training, because there are new trends that we need to keep we need to actualize what we are learning, okay? And we need constant training for doing that, and give our students all the best. So join those kind of sessions that are free sometimes. Join some seminars, some workshops that that are going to help you to improve your English skills and strategies and techniques also. Okay, I have told about the use of case studies to present students then with and to ask them to provide you with some solutions. Here we have a slide that deals with teacher development for storytelling techniques, professional development, workshop participation, as I told you, professional learning communities. You can join some learning communities as well. In those communities, teachers are all the time sharing information that might be helpful for you to grow professionally. Storytelling resources, study narrative frameworks and storytelling techniques, gather diverse story examples from various cultures, explore apps and platforms for creating digital stories. Dare to use technology. Try to incorporate technology into your classroom. Okay, sometimes in public school it's a little bit complicated, but you can maybe talk to the principal there and ask him or her to help you with some kind of English lab maybe, or give you access to any computer to print the material and bring it to your students. Or maybe they can allow the students to bring once a week their cellular phone to work together using it. Creating a supportive classroom environment. There are some key elements of a supportive environment. Psychological safety. Create a space where students feel safe to express their ideas without fear of judgment. As I was telling you, it is not advisable to judge what your students are saying. Okay? Don't make them feel ashamed. Sorry. When giving them feedback, you should use kind words in order not to hurt their feelings. If you need to tell any of the students something, wait until the end and ask the student to stay and talk directly to that student that maybe is causing some problems in the class, is disturbing the others. So you don't make them feel ashamed and embarrassed in front of the others. Collaborative atmosphere. Encourage peer support in collaborative storytelling activities. In most of the cases, we have some heterogeneous groups. We need to take advantage of the students who are kind of strong in order to pair them with weak students and to support each other and help each other to succeed at acquiring or at doing the activity all together. Creative freedom. Allow for creative expression and diverse narrative approaches. And then we have the practical guidelines. Establish clear expectations for respectful listening, constructive feedback. It is very important, for the very beginning, we as teachers should give our students we should set up clear rules, okay? The way we like our students behave in the classroom. Everybody has to respect each other. Nobody's going to laugh from the other's mistakes. We need to take turns if we want to ask any question. So students have to have clear what are your expectations of their behavior. Use positive reinforcement to encourage risk-taking in storytelling. Sometimes it is important to let our students know how well they are doing. So we have to use some kind of prizes, maybe some stickers, some candy to give them in order to motivate to continue giving their best. Implement collaborative activities like story circles, the one we were discussing in the previous slides. Provide choice in storytelling formats and topics to accommodate diverse learning styles. As I told you, you have to consider the way your students prefer to learn. Sometimes they are visual students. Sometimes they like to listen to the story. So you have to combine strategies to meet all your students' needs. Provide choice, okay, I already read. Modern vulnerability by sharing your own storytelling experiences and challenges. As it says, as the saying says, practice makes perfect, okay? So you have to not to give up and continue giving your best. Here there is a slide that explains how to measure the impact, okay? According to some researchers, storytelling approaches significantly improve students' spoken and written output. They help to students to develop the communicative competence. Cognitive engagement. Studies show that integrating critical thinking strategies promotes deeper cognitive engagement in English classroom, moving beyond memorization to analytical reasoning, as we were discussing before. Learner autonomy. Evidence suggests that both approaches foster increased learner autonomy and confidence in language use across various proficiency levels. You see, learners learn to be autonomous. Research methodologies, qualitative studies on storytelling, impact on learner engagement. You engage your students through storytelling. You help them to develop their critical skills. You help them to pass from traditional to narrative-based teaching. And in teacher development, research supports ongoing professional development for teachers in these methodologies. These are very productive. These are very beneficial for your students. And I just hope you start incorporating them into your own teaching. Okay, you know that there are many technological tools you can use in order to present your students with these stories. If you don't have the necessary resources, you can use the other strategies. Just by presenting them a question of the beginning of the story, they can continue creating it together as a whole group. Okay? And as a way to summarize this, storytelling is a powerful educational strategy that supports the development of social skills by creating opportunities for learners to engage in shared experience, understand multiple perspectives, and practice effective communication. Remember that by retelling the story and giving you the moral of the story, students are rehearsing with the language, are communicating, are expressing what they have understood from the story. Through them, students are also exposed to social situations, moral dilemmas, emotional dynamics that help them develop empathy, active listening, cooperation, and emotional regulation, as stated by Isabel et al. In 2004. And these are the pillars of social competence: cross-cultural understanding, emotional intelligence, cultural understanding, empathy development, and cooperative learning, as the ones we were mentioning. Okay, now, as a way to summarize everything I have mentioned regarding the storytelling, I'm going to play this video, okay? Please pay attention to it.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a journey into the heart of storytelling. Have you ever noticed how a good story lingers in your mind, like a melody you can't quite shake? It stays with you, doesn't it? Long after it's told, the images, the emotions, the very essence of the narrative remains. It's a testament to the power of a well-crafted tale. Stories are more than entertainment. They're not just a way to pass the time. They connect us across time and cultures, weaving a tapestry of shared human experience. They remind us that we are all part of something bigger. From ancient firesides where myths and legends were born, to today's digital worlds, where stories unfold on screens and in virtual spaces, the tradition continues. Stories help us make sense of life, offering frameworks for understanding complex emotions and situations. They teach, imparting valuable lessons about morality, courage, and resilience. They comfort, offering solace in times of trouble, and inspire us to dream, igniting our imaginations and fueling our aspirations. Think about the stories you loved as a child, the ones that transported you to faraway lands and introduced you to unforgettable characters. You remember the characters and lessons, don't you? The brave knight, the wise old woman, the moral of the story. That's because our brains are wired for narrative. It's how we naturally process and retain information. We feel, imagine, and remember stories far longer than facts, because stories engage our emotions and create lasting impressions. Stories are the keepers of our history and values, preserving cultural heritage and transmitting traditional wisdom. They are the threads that connect us to the past, passing wisdom from one generation to the next, ensuring that valuable lessons are not forgotten. When we share stories, whether they are personal anecdotes or grand epics, we share a piece of ourselves, revealing our vulnerabilities, our hopes, and our dreams. This act of sharing builds bridges of empathy and understanding, fostering connections that transcend differences. This connection is the true heart of communication, allowing us to truly see and understand one another. In the classroom, where young minds are eager to learn and grow, stories become a gateway for students learning English, unlocking a world of possibilities. Language transforms from rules to a living, breathing adventure, full of excitement and discovery. Storytelling invites students to listen, to engage, and to immerse themselves in the world of language. It encourages them to speak, to express themselves, and to connect with English in a joyful, personal way, making the learning process more meaningful and effective. Let's explore how this magic works, uncovering the secrets of effective storytelling in the classroom. The journey begins now, as we delve into the enduring power and magic of a good story. Imagine stepping into an English classroom not filled with the usual drills and rote memorization, but alive with the magic of stories. When stories enter the English classroom, something wonderful happens. A transformation begins to unfold. The pressure of grammar and vocabulary fades, the anxiety of perfect pronunciation starts to dissipate. It's replaced by curiosity and excitement. Students become eager participants, ready to explore new worlds and ideas. Stories provide natural context. They weave a tapestry of meaning around new words and phrases. Students hear words in action, not as isolated definitions, but as vibrant components of a living narrative. This makes language easier to understand and remember. The context helps cement the new vocabulary and grammar in their minds. A compelling narrative captures attention, holding students spellbound as they follow the twists and turns of the plot. This motivates students to listen closely and piece together meaning, actively engaging their minds in the learning process. This engagement turns learning into a delightful pursuit, a journey filled with wonder and discovery rather than a chore. It encourages participation and risk-taking, creating a safe space for students to experiment with the language. Stories are also windows into other cultures, offering glimpses into different ways of life and perspectives. They help students explore traditions and perspectives from around the world, fostering empathy and understanding. English becomes more than a subject. It transforms into a tool for connecting with people from all corners of the globe. It's a global language spoken by real people with real stories to tell and real experiences to share. Sharing stories, both personal and fictional, becomes a powerful way to connect with others. This builds a supportive classroom community where students feel valued and respected. Students and teachers connect on a deeper level, forging bonds that extend beyond the classroom walls. This creates common ground for discussion and interaction, fostering a sense of shared experience. As they laugh and wonder together, exploring the nuances of language and culture, trust grows, making students comfortable to practice and share their thoughts and ideas without fear of judgment. The classroom transforms into a place for genuine communication, where ideas flow freely and understanding deepens. It becomes a space for friendship, where connections are forged and lasting bonds are created. And ultimately, it's a place for discovery, where students unlock their potential and embrace the joy of learning. That's the foundation for any successful learning journey, a foundation built on engagement, connection, and a love of stories. So, let's see how we can bring this transformative power of storytelling to life in your English classroom. Bringing stories to life in the classroom, weaving narratives into your lessons, is not only easier than you might think, but also incredibly rewarding. It's a fantastic way to engage students and make learning more memorable. Here are 10 practical strategies to help you seamlessly integrate storytelling into your teaching. These tips will help you captivate your students and create a more dynamic learning environment. Start with a hook. An intriguing question, a surprising statement, or a mysterious object to spark curiosity and immediately grab your students' attention. Use a clear structure, beginning, middle, and end, providing a roadmap for your story. This ensures students can easily follow the sequence of events and understand the narrative's progression. Make stories relatable. Connect them to students' lives, experiences, and backgrounds to foster a deeper connection and understanding. Integrate characters and emotions. Use your voice, facial expressions, and gestures to bring them alive, making the story more engaging and memorable. Add visual aids. Pictures, puppets, or drawings make stories clearer, more engaging, and accessible to different learning styles. Encourage student storytelling. Let them add sentences, contribute ideas, or create their own tales, fostering creativity and collaboration. Use story maps or graphic organizers to help students retell stories in their own words, improving comprehension and recall. Include dialogue and different voices for characters. This adds depth and excitement to the narrative. Keep stories short and exciting, especially for beginners, to maintain their attention and avoid overwhelming them. Reflect and connect. Ask questions like, "What was your favorite part?" or "What did we learn?" Encouraging critical thinking and reflection. These strategies turn any lesson into an adventure, making learning more engaging and enjoyable for everyone. Try a few, and watch your classroom transform into a vibrant hub of storytelling and learning. Now let's see a story in action, and witness the magic of storytelling firsthand. Imagine a story, The Lost Treasure of Pinewood Forest. Two friends, Finn the fox and Squeaky the squirrel, find a mysterious map in the woods. Their journey is filled with challenges, rivers to cross, riddles to solve. Pause and ask, what challenges might they face? Let students predict and participate. At the river, a riddle appears. I have a neck but no head, and I wear a cap. What is it? Let students guess before revealing. It's a bottle. The story ends with the friends finding a box of stones and a note. The real treasure is friendship. Discuss. Why is friendship the real treasure? What makes a good friend? This story sparks imagination, critical thinking, and meaningful conversation, all in English. Stories like this make learning memorable. After a story, keep the creativity flowing with speaking and writing activities. Try a story circle. Start a sentence and let each student add to the tale as it goes around. Use story starters. Give students a sentence like, "If I had a magic carpet," and let them write their own adventure. Photo stories are great too. Students choose a picture and write a story about it. For groups, give a sequence of pictures and have them create a story together. Retelling is powerful. Use puppets or props and let students act out the story in their own words. These activities build fluency, confidence, and imagination. Students become storytellers, not just listeners. The classroom becomes a stage for every voice. That's the magic of story-based learning. Every child brings a unique story to your classroom. Inclusive storytelling means reflecting all students' backgrounds in the stories you share. Adapt classic tales. Change settings or characters to match your students' cultures. Invite students to share folk tales from their own backgrounds, teaching key words or phrases. This empowers students as experts and celebrates their heritage. The classroom becomes a tapestry of global stories where every culture is valued. Use stories to explore real-world issues, friendship, community, or the environment. These conversations build empathy and global awareness. Through shared narratives, we nurture thoughtful, compassionate citizens. Storytelling is about honoring every voice. Storytelling unlocks more than language. It builds life skills. Following a narrative teaches critical thinking, cause and effect, and logical sequencing. Students practice empathy by connecting with characters' feelings and perspectives. Discussing stories helps them express opinions and listen to others. These skills, teamwork, negotiation, and consensus, are vital for real-world success. Storytelling prepares students for everyday communication, not just tests. They learn to structure thoughts, engage listeners, and connect meaningfully. Our goal is to empower students to find and share their own voices. Storytelling makes learning English an adventure and a joy. Let's keep the magic alive, one story at a time. Hello, friends. Welcome to a journey into the heart of storytelling.
Okay, now I would like to know if you have any question. Okay, Elizabeth, you are raising your hand. Okay, is there any question? Okay, thank you very much for those emoticons and receiving. Okay, I cannot see the questions. I don't know. Okay. Okay, there is a question here that says, what is the best strategy for applying critical thinking? Okay. The answer for this question will be that you, as the teacher, you know what kind of students you have, right? So you need to use the one that works well with them, with that group of students you have. There is not always going to be one specific strategy that works well with one group of students. You should combine them, right? Okay. Another question says, are there existing guidelines at our school for adapting instructional materials according to student proficiency? Okay, that question, I'm sure the principal, it's the one who has to answer that question. I don't really get it, what you mean with that question. The other one says, what elements do you think make a story effective and engaging when using storytelling? Okay, it depends. It depends on the group of the students you have. Okay, you can bring any story that it's according to the age of your students. Okay, according, as I told you, you have to relate it to the topic you are teaching them. And it's going to work in this way, because if you relate it with the topic you are going to teach, your students are going to feel engaged, are going to be hooked to the lesson you are going to teach them. Okay, let me find another question. It says, could you provide a practical example of fostering critical thinking with children? Of course, you can present them with a short reading material, with any extract of a reading. You can ask them to, or you can read the story to them, and you can, based on that story, if they cannot read yet, based on that story, you can ask them questions. Okay, going from simple questions to more complex ones. And at the end, you are going to notice how they are supporting the answers they are giving you with details from the reading material. Okay, another question says, how to cope with a student's lack of vocabulary while they answer deep questions. As I told you, if you are presenting your students with a story that includes lots of new vocabularies, you first of all have to show them the new vocabulary. And once they are familiarized with it, you present them the whole story. It says, I have students with low level in English. How can I motivate to create a storytelling? Start with short little stories, and then as they are increasing their level of English, you can go for most complex ones. You can start, for example, with drawings. Yeah, you can ask them to draw the pictures of the story and write some short sentences under each of the pictures, and then all together they create the whole story. You can start in that way. Okay, let me find some other questions. How to apply critical thinking with students that don't have enough knowledge of English. It doesn't matter if they are just beginners. You can start with a paragraph, with a sentence, with any short material that is going to help them with a question. You just present them with a question and you say, okay, how would you solve this situation? After giving them the context and familiarize them with the vocabulary, you ask them a question, says, okay, what is the solution you propose? Okay, why are you giving me that solution? What are your fundaments? What are the arguments you have? Okay. It says, do you think all children can learn English, or are there cases in which a student might not be able to learn the language? With constant motivation, with constant support, I'm sure every single student will learn English. Remember that you just need to make your classes creative enough, engaging. You shouldn't leave any child behind. You should take advantage of strong students to support weak ones. And as I told you, don't ever allow your students to say, I cannot. They should forget about that phrase. You should encourage them with encouraging words. For instance, telling them, this is possible. I know you can do it. Try and try once more. By trial and error, they are going to learn. It's possible that everyone speaks English, believe me. And don't ever use Spanish in English class. That's the cue. If you start using their mother tongue, they are going to get accustomed, and then it is difficult to overcome that. Keep that in mind. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope this information is useful for you to apply in your own learning environment. And I'll see you in December 18th, okay, with a new topic about gamification. Please read all the information to expand it through the courses you already have access to. Nice to see you. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
En la UTPL estamos convencidos que el conocimiento transforma el mundo. Por eso queremos invitarte a postular a una de nuestras maestrías de la Facultad de Ciencias Sociales, Educación y Humanidades, que te permitirá alcanzar tus metas profesionales, de la mano de profesores expertos especializados en investigación, con metodologías innovadoras y activas. Postula desde hoy en nuestra página web www.utpl.edu.es/maestrías. Te esperamos.